It's time to catch up with Connor Pay once again, and we recap BYU spring ball. How did things go from inside the ropes, as they say? You'll hear from Connor next.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you who are everydayers with us right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. The motto is your team every day, and as such, this is your original daily podcast focused on all things BYU sports, and we are brought to you today by our friends over at FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 wins. Simple as that. Go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. All right, without further ado, it's time now to bring in Connor Pay, BYU team captain, a regular contributor to this fine program. We're going to start here today. Connor, happy birthday to you, sir. What was the best thing you got this week for your birthday?
Well, thank you. Outside of all the jokes and all that stuff, since it's April Fool's Day, just not much. I got a chill day. You know, I went to class in the morning, played golf in the afternoon, and then went and had dinner with my family. So like, it was just a chill, relaxed day. So, which is exactly what I would want on a birthday.
Well, and that's I agree with you on that. I did. You got the text from me. I said, "Hey, happy birthday to you," if it really is your birthday, and so
exactly. Don't worry, that's from the day I was born. Half the people didn't even show up to the hospital because they thought my parents were joking.
That's actually really funny.
So.
There you go. Well, so spring camp is in the rearview mirror. You guys have just gone through a month worth of 15 practices officially, but a lot of meetings and workouts around all of that. But give me a sense of how you feel about the program right now after a month of practices versus maybe going in.
I feel like spring was really productive. You know, there was obviously for us, I know I've mentioned it before, just learning a new system as an O-line, and even with the tight ends and the receivers and the quarterbacks, it's a new run game. And so, you know, obviously that was really good to get on the field and actually do it for the first time, try to implement Coach Wood's system. And, you know, obviously there were some growing pains at first, but I really thought that it got going a little bit. And, you know, that's a credit to him and getting everybody on the same page, and, you know, to the players for responding to that. And so overall, as an offense, we still have a long way to go. That's why spring ball's in the spring. And, you know, we still have 4 or 5 more months of prep, you know, before we get into fall camp and before we have to be ready to play in a game. But I thought that, you know, we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish in spring ball, which was, you know, emphasizing being a physical offense, running the football, getting back to be able to do that on every down. That was kind of, you know, A-Rod's focus from day one, is getting back to that, because, you know, it opens up everything else. And I feel like we were able to accomplish that during spring ball, and set us up to keep improving throughout the summer and then into training camp.
Now, when you mention new running game, I'm just speaking as somebody who may be watching and or listening to this. You're going to say, well, is it completely different? What have they changed? I'm guessing that the base level, the zone blocking scheme is still the base for you guys. There may be just some new elements to it. Is that the right assumption I should take?
Yeah, I would say so. I think, you know, a lot of it, you know, looks the same. You know, all run plays in football look similar, right? Yeah. And, but I think the way we ID defenses is a little different, and just kind of the techniques of the scheme are a little different. But yeah, you're still going to see zone primarily. You're still going to see counters. You're still going to see power, you know, and so I think the run game will be a little bit more diverse than it was last year, but also at the same time, you know, it'll be a lot of that zone game football, but obviously just the way Coach Woods coaches it and how he wants it to be executed is different. And so that was kind of, the main focus for us as an O-line was just trying to figure out how he wants it done and doing it the way he wants it so we can, be successful.
Now, I have a couple of people who I asked for questions from our Locked On Cougars Insider group, and I know at least two of them asked me to ask you this. How is your relationship with Coach Woods evolved over the past month, and is he any different now that you've worked extensively with him versus what you had experienced previous?
No, not really. I mean, our relationship's only getting stronger. He's probably fed up with me by now. Probably ready to kick me to the curb. He's probably annoyed with me most of the time, either for screwing something up or for bugging him 24/7 about things. But no, he's been awesome. And one of I mentioned in some post-spring media stuff we did that kind of his strengths I think are his intensity and his consistency. I think he's the same person every day, which is the goal, right, for human beings in life in general, but also especially for a team and for an offensive line, is to, he always talks about how the circumstances change, but we don't, right? It doesn't matter what the situation in the game is, what happened to play before this, doesn't matter. Circumstances change, we don't. We're the same. We're consistent. We perform at a high level all the time. And he kind of exemplified that this spring. We had some good practices. We had some bad ones. And he was the same. He didn't he didn't deviate from his high level of intensity and accountability and expectations. And I think that made us better. And so I think for us and for me individually, but also for the room, I think respect only grew for Coach Woods. And the reviews I heard about him from some of his former players when I was getting to know him and stuff, I'm starting to understand what they were talking about when they talked about how much they loved playing for him, and how much they felt like they learned from him.
All right, I'm going to get one more question before we talk a little bit about the quarterback, some other things, but there's a question from Riker. He says, does Connor have a moment during spring camp where he saw something either individually or as an offensive line as a whole, where he saw something from Coach Woods that they implemented that was a quote-unquote, oh, wow, we got better type moment?
Yeah, I think those happened every single day. It's you always have those moments. I think it's probably a little easier when you're learning something for the first time too, whether you haven't done before, where everything kind of feels like, ooh, wow, I just did this for the first time and it worked. And I think there were multiple moments like that every practice, whether it was me IDing something right or the guys passing off a certain twist a certain way that we had worked on during individual that Coach Woods had emphasized, and we actually executed it during the team period. And obviously it's kind of, this is football and this is life, 2 steps forward, 1 step back sometimes, where it's like we had those moments every day where it was like, hey, we got this right this time, we did it how we wanted, it worked, like this is awesome. And it's like, hey, oh man, we screwed that up bad, like we just went over this and we screwed it up, and now Coach Woods is ripping us, and then you go back the very next play, the cycle of the snap, next play, doesn't matter, circumstances change, we don't, and then you go and do something great and you turn around and he was ripping you 1 second and the next thing he's going crazy in the background because we did it right, and so practice is full of those. And so I can't put my finger on like one specific moment because they happen so often. It's probably 4 or 5 times a practice where you're like, oh, heck yeah, we went over that in meetings, we worked on it individual, and we just nailed it in the team period. So.
Well, I guess so. I'll add one just quick follow up to that. Do you feel like the run game is going to be at the level? Because I know Aaron Roderick, he talked about this in his post spring interview session, said we were focused on the run game. We want to get back to being the physical run team we have been for a long time. Do you feel like you guys are on your way to being that?
Yes, absolutely. I feel like we're definitely on the right track for that. Right. Still, there's a lot of work to be done between now and August. But I think if we stay on this trajectory, keep the intensity throughout the summer, and guys stay in the playbook and all that stuff, because it's, I think for me, it's really easy to be physical when you know exactly what you're doing. It's difficult to be physical when you're wondering what the heck is going on. And so I think I'd mentioned before, I put a lot of pressure on the guys to learn the playbook better and to know what's going on. And I think we took some big strides in that area this spring. Some guys did, some guys didn't. And I think that's where I'm going to have to do a good job this spring and this summer. Kind of might be a little uncomfortable for them, but keeping the pressure on to make sure that we stay sharp. Because I've mentioned this before, but it's a really intuitive system that Coach Woods has, and we can handle just about anything with that system. But you gotta know how to handle it, and so and it's like anything, I guess. If you don't think about it for 3 or 4 weeks while we're off right now, and you try to come back and do it, you're gonna forget the details, the finite details. So just keeping that fresh on our mind. And if we can do that throughout the summer, I think we'll put ourselves in a really good position to have a really strong run game in the fall.
All right, I got some more questions that people want answered. We'll dig into those in a moment. We'll also talk about a little bit about the overall offense with Connor. We'll get to all as we roll on right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Now, FanDuel is here for you guys because there's a loaded sports calendar ongoing right now. They want to make it even more exciting to get in on all of the action. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 to use to bet on the NCAA tournament, Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, and a whole lot more. Whether it's futures in college football, you think BYU is going to go over their win totals from our friends at FanDuel. You can do all that with our friends at FanDuel today. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make your first bet a big win. Once again, $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. So visit FanDuel.com once again, FanDuel.com/lockedon once again, excuse me. Check it out today. That's all courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first to listen today. I want to remind you guys, if you're sick of watching ESPN or Fox Sports and hearing all that shouting going on, make the switch to Locked On Sports Today. Is a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you all the biggest stories about all the screaming that seems to be going on all the other networks. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or also on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, rolling on here with Connor Pay, BYU team captain. And Connor, we'll just get this question out of the way right now because I've got like 3 or 4 other people have asked me this. Connor, who do you think BYU starting quarterback is going to be? Go.
I have no idea. I have no idea. And if I did know, I wouldn't tell you.
I also guessed that was going to be the answer, but I figured I would do my due diligence and ask the question that was on a lot of people's minds.
Yeah, no, I mean, A-Rod said the competition will continue into the fall, which, just given A-Rod's track record, I completely expected. My first year here, Jaron and Zach were competing all the way until we played Navy.
Yeah.
Like 2 or 3 days before the game is when the starter was named, and so, no, they both did a really good job. I thought both of them were excellent. They have different strengths and different weaknesses, but I think they both got better this spring. And so it was really fun to watch.
Now, the question I've got coming off this is Aaron Roderick revealed in his media session after spring practice wrapped up that Jake did not throw an interception in all 15 practices of the spring. And he said, we didn't really want to talk about it. It's kind of like a no-hitter in baseball. You don't talk about it. Were you aware of that as an offense, that he had not thrown a pick all spring?
No. And when he said it, my first reaction, this is probably kind of bad, but my first reaction was like, he's lying. And I was like, there's no way that we didn't throw a single one. And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, can I remember one in a team period? And I was like, I don't know if I can. And so I went back and rewatched all the team periods from practice, and there wasn't one in there. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. And so I sent a text to Jake, and I was like, hey, man, it's true. Man, nice, man. You balled. But yeah, no, that was really good to see Jake keep taking steps forward.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of had a little bit of baptism by fire last year. Those last 4 games kind of getting thrown in there against some really good defenses.
Yeah.
That's a tough thing to deal with, when you're in a brand new offense. And so I think having the January, February time to kind of, keep working on the mental side of the game and then to go and execute it during spring ball, he did a really good job with that.
All right. So next question that comes in, this comes from a few different people. So all similar type question. Danny asked this, Tyson asked this, Andrew asked this. So essentially the question is, Connor, now that spring camp is over, what is the roadmap through this rest of the spring/summer for you as an offensive line? I guess just overall as a team as well.
Yeah. So whenever spring ball ends, this is like the time of year. This is like our time off.
Okay.
For the year. And we'll have optional workouts, and until school's out.
Yeah.
Because we're still in classes until April 22nd or 23rd or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then we'll have like true time off where it's like we'll come back May 13th. So like that's the window where it's like, hey, if this is when you want to go on vacation with your family, this is when you should plan it, like all that kind of stuff. So, we'll have those workouts, and it's really good because it's much easier to maintain your level of physical fitness than it is to lose it and try to get it back when we come back in May. So I'm pretty grateful that we'll have these workouts, until April, and then they'll have kind of take home packets for us. For the guys who are going to be leaving, of stuff we're required to do every day in terms of lifting and running and all that stuff. That way we don't lose anything, and hopefully even gain some during these slower weeks. And then we'll come back and hit it hard May 13th. It's when our summer conditioning program begins, and that'll run through the end of July. It's a 10-week program, I want to say. Is that how many weeks there are from the middle of May to the end of July? Something like that. Yeah. Maybe 8 to 10 week program, which is a little bit longer, but similar to the January, February program before spring ball. But this one is just building on what you've done through, spring. And because obviously the goal is to be at our peak in, November, December, right? And so the keep building up until that time. But these next few weeks when when things are a little slower, and then especially once we have a break with school, that's when they give us like some real time off, kind of go spend some time with your family, because we really haven't had any. Like we get 1 to 2 weeks after the season ends off, and then winter workouts start, and school starts again. So you can squeeze some things in that window, but this is kind of the real time, and this is like the time where coaches get to go family vacations, do all that stuff, while there's a recruiting dead period in that window, I think. Yeah. I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure there is one. And so, yeah, kind of a little bit slower over the next month or so. And then we'll come back and hit it hard May 13th.
Now, the question that comes off of that is just another question from our listeners here. It comes from Andrew. Says, now that camp is over, what would Connor be the strengths of the team, and what areas would he like to see improvement in?
For the team as a whole?
Team as a whole, correct.
I think we're in a good spot physically right now as a team. That was something that was noticeably different. And I think that has a lot to do with, the new strength staff and the awesome job they've done this winter and how much they've helped us. I think we were stronger and faster, this year than we've been in the past. I know I personally have felt better. My body felt better this spring than probably any other spring, that I've had since being here. And I know there's quite a few guys on the team who felt that way as well. So, but I think our mentality as a team right now is definitely a strength, because, we're embarrassed about how things went, and, there's a fire and there's an intensity, and guys brought it to practice every day, and we competed. And I think some areas that we still need to improve, I think we still need to improve on our football IQ, kind of the mental side of the game, learning the offense for the offensive guys, learning the defense. And I know that there were a lot of young guys in there too who were kind of just trying to survive. You know, they just got here. But I think even the veterans can do a little bit better job being on their P's and Q's a little bit with the playbook. And for us on offense, obviously, you know, especially in the run game, it was a lot of new stuff. And so there's a little bit of leeway there, right, while you're learning something. But, you know, I think we can all dial in a little better on the mental side of the game, and that just comes from just study and, you know, dedication to it. So I think that's one area where we can improve this summer, because I think physically we came out and we practiced hard and we were physical and we competed, and I thought we had a really good mindset and mentality with that. Now I think if we can combine that with really being dialed in to, you know, what the coaches want us to do and the schemes we're running, I think it could, you know, make for some really good stuff in the fall. So that's just off the top of my head. But
all right, one more hard-hitting football question, then we'll get to some fun ones here. I'll get you out of the way on that. But the last one comes from Byron here. So I got a question about this. Connor made it clear last year that it felt like the offensive line had some discord related to effort and accountability in the group. The question is, do such problems remain, or have those players who may have caused that moved on at this point? Are things better today?
Absolutely better. Things have definitely improved.
Okay.
For a number of reasons. I think I think for one, it's demanded, you know, by our position coach, and anything short of it is unacceptable, which is where, you know, it should have been all along. But I think too, I think the O-line room, the players, I think, have realized how detrimental that can be.
Okay.
Just because with how things went last year. You know, I haven't had to try to force anything this spring. Everyone was gung-ho and everybody wanted to do it. You know, where last year there were a lot of things that were a little bit of a fight. And this year that's just not the case at all. And I think that has a lot to do with Coach Woods and what he demands. But I think also the guys came ready to play this spring and ready to improve, and knowing we had to improve. And you know, I think it's been a really good, in retrospect, learning experience for me as a leader, in the ways I could have done it better last year, and applying that this spring. And I know Kym feels that way too, and Waylon. And so it's definitely improved in that area for sure.
Well, that's what we like to hear. All right, we will have some fun as we wrap up this edition of Locked On Cougars with Connor coming up in just a moment as we roll on right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. It offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides you access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV on top of that. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball with the ongoing baseball season, the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV as an option for you guys. The best part is Fire TV recently created the Fire TV Channels app that deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands. All of it, the best part is, for free. FREE. That includes all of us here at the Locked On Podcast Network, as well as most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV Channels let you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and football, not to mention a whole lot more, and also great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, and cooking videos as well. So get started today and check out the Fire TV Channels app on Fire TV and Alexa devices. You can go to Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Once again, that's Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV to get started today. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen to the day. If you'd like to be a part of the group that's been asking these questions to Connor Pay and the like, and have updates from myself as I'm out at BYU football events and practices and all that like, please join our Locked On Cougars Insider group. The link is in our show notes, whether you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. 14-day free trial, $5 a month afterwards to be a part of the group, and it's a really fun way to interact with the show because they literally come to your phone via direct text messages. So really, really enjoying the group we've got going. We'd love for you guys to be a part of it as well. All right. Finishing up here this edition of Locked On Cougars with Connor Pay, a special spring ball recap edition. But Connor, let's have some fun here as we wrap up. So we're going to start with one that's, I guess, semi-serious here, but I think you can have some fun with it at the same time. Clint asked this: who is the best blocking tight end on the team right now?
Oh, that's a good question. Man, they all played a lot better.
Okay.
This spring, and I think, oh man, I don't know if I'll be able to pick just one.
Okay.
Tava did a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Olsen did a really good job. Obviously Kibo did a really good job. I think Kibo has a new respect for life in the trenches now after this spring ball. And so when he said that to me, and he's like, "Man, I got a different respect for what goes on down there," I was like, "Yeah, you should."
Well, okay, let me insert one thing.
Kibo's done a good job.
Kibo was quite a ferocious blocker as a wide receiver. I'll always give him plaudits. That dude got after it out there on the perimeter, but you're right. He probably got a newfound respect for what you guys deal with literally every play.
Yeah.
All right. Next question here. If you could pick, so this comes from John. If Connor could pick the brain of any player in BYU history, who would it be and why?
If I could pick what?
If you could pick the brain of any former BYU football player.
Pick the brain.
Yeah.
That's a good question too, because there's not very many of them I don't have access to that I've had conversations with before. Who do I want to pick their brain? Jim McMahon would be a fun one.
Okay.
Jim McMahon would be fun. I'm trying to think of ones I haven't talked to make it more interesting.
Okay. Well, hey, here's the thing. We've had Jim McMahon on this very podcast, and I can tell you it was one of the more entertaining conversations I've ever had in my life.
I'm sure. Yeah, he's the first one that comes to mind. There's a lot of other ones that I enjoy talking to, but I get to talk to them. So,
okay. Well, hey, we can probably work on facilitating a conversation between you and Jimmy Mack. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be fun to talk ball.
We have some communication we can work on that. All right. So next question here that deals with the transfer portal. And this comes from, it's a kind of a two-part question because John, who also had the question about you picking the brand of a BYU football player, he said that Connor, in a previous show, you said the hire of Coach Woods is a big reason why you came back to BYU and you didn't enter the transfer portal. And then a related question to this came from Taylor, and that's this. What did BYU have to offer that the transfer portal would not or did not have as you were considering your future at BYU?
Well, I think my position coach was kind of the biggest thing. So, because, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why, I chose to come to BYU in the first place and why I wanted to stay. The primary, reasons probably being, the combination of my education with also my religious beliefs. That's a pretty special thing in a higher education environment that I probably wouldn't be able to get at many other schools. But, I think because outside of that, BYU has its unique things that make it a special place. And then when you go to kind of the generic things, like NIL, facilities, all that other stuff, you can go out there in the country and you can find plenty of other ones that are better, who will pay you more money. And really for the last 2.5 years, really there's been a lot of schools throwing out large dollar amounts, to try to entice me to enter the transfer portal. And so it's been interesting, to kind of go through all that. But no, I think that my biggest reason for staying was, when I kind of got to know Coach Woods a little bit better, and I realized that, he could help me with, you know, a lot of the personal goals that I had, because transferring would have been an absolute last resort for me, you know, because I love BYU and I want to be here and I did not want to leave. And, you know, but just as I talked with agents and other people, just the way the season had gone, I was planning on it being my last year. Declaring for the draft had always been the plan. Then when we didn't play well as an O-line and the run game wasn't good, and then you go 5-7, your draft stock goes down, and that's what happened to me. And so the agents were like, "Hey, you should probably take a good, serious look at coming back for your senior year." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm kind of feeling that way too, a little bit, you know, just with the information that was available to me." But they said, you know, you kind of need to figure out your coaching situation and figure out who they hire first and get a feel for it. And if you feel like it's not a good fit, you know, that you should seriously consider either just taking your chances and declaring for the draft and probably going as a free agent, or transferring to a different school. And so that's when I was kind of like, oh man, I really got to figure this out. And so once I sat down with Coach Woods and I realized that, you know, he was going to really help us, that kind of solidified for me my decision to return to BYU and to, you know, I never really considered super heavily the transfer portal because I didn't want to think about that until I had met with the new coach and kind of knew what was going on. And you know, obviously it's been really good, and I feel like I've improved a lot since Coach Woods got here as an individual player, and he's helped our our room too. And so, you know, there was a time where it kind of became clear that my personal goals and BYU were not synonymous anymore. And thankfully, you know, some things changed that made them synonymous again. And, you know, that was a conversation I've had for multiple years now with Kalani and with A-Rod, and just kind of just being like, hey, it kind of feels like BYU and my personal goals aren't, you know, they don't line up anymore like they once did. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, I feel like it's back in line now, and I'm really glad that it is, because I love it here and I definitely didn't want to leave. So it all worked out for the best, and hopefully it'll continue to work out for the best through the summer and into the fall. So.
Well, and I was going to add that last tidbit if you didn't. Based on the conversation you and I had, I wanted to make it very clear. You were not actively trying to leave. You wanted to give BYU every benefit of the doubt to stick around.
No, that would have absolutely been a last resort.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. 2 more questions before we wrap up here. We'll this one from Andy. Can you ask Connor what is the last movie that made him cry, or a movie that made him cry the hardest, if any? You're movie
that made me cry?
Yeah. Has that happened in your life? I can say it's happened to me, but it doesn't happen a lot.
I don't know. I don't know if I've cried watching a movie. I think I can probably count on both my hands the amount of times I've cried in my life.
Tough guy, man. What a tough guy. I like it.
It's not even like a tough guy thing. Tears just don't, like, obviously I feel very strong emotions when I'm watching things and stuff, but just tears just typically isn't really how it happens for me. I will say, I guess, because what was the question? It was like either the movie,
yeah,
or because I don't think I've ever cried during a movie.
Okay.
You know, maybe after like a Lord of the Rings marathon or something, because that's an emotional journey, right? Or the end of after watching all 8 Harry Potters or something, and you watch that train pull away with their kids, and you're like, man. But I don't think it's ever brought me to tears.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of maybe even the last time I cried. Well, I did cry on Sunday a little bit. This is true. My sister sang in sacrament meeting for Easter.
Okay.
And that got me a little bit, unfortunately, and I think she saw it. So that's not ideal either. But but that's probably the last time.
Okay. Well, was Easter good otherwise, though, outside your sister probably?
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
That's what we like to hear. That's the good news. All right. Last word goes to Tyson here. Summer is approaching. I love smoking meats. What is Connor's favorite summer BBQ meat to either make or eat, I guess?
Well, we got a Traeger a couple years ago. And so my mom's been going crazy figuring out all these different recipes. We've been trying a bunch of different stuff to figure out what works the best. And she smokes this tri-tip that is unreal. And it's kind of become a staple in our household now. That's kind of the go-to meal when people are home on Sundays and stuff, or we have a family dinner. So I would say it's smoked tri-tip. That's probably it for me.
Well, see, tri-tip, it's simple, but when it's done right, it is absolutely sublime, and it is a staple in our household as well.
Absolutely true.
Well, Connor, appreciate you taking the time as always. Best of luck with the little downtime that you do have upcoming here. I've told our listeners, and you've kind of agreed, we've talked about this off air as well, that you're going to continue to kind of join us periodically throughout the summer months. And obviously we'll hit it hard as fall camp gets underway and the like, and head into
whatever you want.
What'll be the final season for Connor Pay in a BYU uniform, as weird as that is to say.
Yikes.
All right. Anything else you'd like to pass along to Cougar fans before we wrap it up, Connor?
Nope. Just thanks for always being there with us and for us, man. It'll be fun, and be fun to come on the podcast a few more times, even during the down months, so you guys can maybe get a little insight into my life as a normal human being, and all that stuff, and get updates on how my golf game's doing. And
well, I was just going to mention the whole golf thing. You and I maybe take the podcast like on the road and like out on the golf course and like, have some fun.
Yeah, we should do that. That'd be awesome. I just got back right before we recorded this from Gladstone.
Okay.
So playing 18 holes there. So.
All right. Well, Connor Pay, catch him on the links in summer if you don't see him anywhere else, it sounds like. All right.
Yep.
All right, Connor. Thanks as always, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, that is Connor Pay. Big thank you to him for joining the podcast, as always, all throughout spring camp. Like I mentioned, we will check in with him periodically throughout the upcoming summer months leading up to training camp. We will be back tomorrow talking all things BYU football, BYU basketball, and continuing our look back at all 100 seasons of BYU football as well. So until then, thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you once again for being everydayers right here as well on the Locked On Cougars podcast.